Hey guys, in today's video, I wanted to talk about how to let go of toxic relationships, how to clear those attachments, and how to let go of, those kinds of relationships that are very draining on your energy in your life. People that always seem to kind of bring you down or continually re-trigger the same kind of relationship dynamics. And we're going to discuss a few different ways of how to do this. And this is definitely something that's been pivotal in my own awakening journey and my own embodiment journey, is being able to prioritize my connection to the source, to this divine source, to the source within myself, my own connection, to be able to find internal validation, find appreciation for myself, and be able to source that. Because a lot of what these dynamics like codependency or dealing with people with narcissistic traits is based on, basically like a lock and key, a puzzle piece mechanism of childhood wounding and trauma, where we seek external validation. And especially if you're an empath or somebody who is highly sensitive to energy, those places within your energy field are kind of like holes or leaks. And until you're able to heal, or as you're able to heal, there's a period of time where you are susceptible to be able to create, or be able to, maybe you already had them, or it's just like part of your earlier life, or something that you're coming to realize that you're ready to let go of. Because ultimately, it's the ultimate act of self-love. Because staying in those dynamics, essentially what it creates is a type of trauma bond where you're bonded to someone else as your source and as your supply of energy. Now, there's a book called The Celestine Prophecy that described how this relates in terms of energy, and basically talked about how, there's different forms that this takes in the shadow. And one of those is like the poor me. It's like the perpetual victim story. And the way that the poor me gets energy, right? This is all about getting energy or attention from the outside, is by dwelling in that state as a means of getting attention and energy. You basically shrink your energy in, and when other people continually kind of like coddle or take care of, or give you that validation that you're not giving within yourself, supplicate's not the right word, but just kind of like, oh, here, and when that becomes a pattern of how somebody basically, like, their nervous system gets trained of how to get energy and attention from others, basically it becomes these subtle forms of manipulation. It creates these energetic cords of attachment. Another one of them is the aloof. It's where, like, somebody who's not fully present, or they act like kind of like mysterious, but they're not really fully connecting with others, but it like draws people to them because they want to know what's going on with them, or check in, or try to get past their shell. I've definitely had aspects of that in my shadow. And another one is just kind of like the bully, right? The one who's like kind of like pokes and prods other people and tries to do, so all of these are different ways that the shadow, the unintegrated shadow, manipulates externally in order to get its source and energy from other people. And the way that we heal this is connecting directly to the source, connecting to ourselves, connecting to the earth, grounding into our bodies, and feeling those feelings of separation. So what creates these, traumas and these wounds and this perpetual pattern in our lives is our separation from source, right? And we, in that experience of that disconnection, we try to fill that void. Now, whether that be a toxic relationship with a partner, or seeking externally through addictions, or friendships or work, people that basically, you're in a kind of cycle, right? And as you're growing and you're evolving and you're healing, certain relationships are going to be able to transform and evolve with you, and others are not, right? So as we're able to come back to the oneness and we're able to connect with ourselves and be able to start to do the deeper healing work and the work on the level of belief and identity, we're able to start to change the meaning that we give to things. And as we do that, we're also less dependent on others, right? So when you're in a relation, when somebody who's empathic is in a codependent relationship with someone who has kind of like narcissistic traits, or who has a really big ego, or and you can even find yourself kind of taking on those traits, or like, it's almost like to be friends with them, it's like you feel like you have to people please, or you feel like you have to agree with things that they say, or maybe you have poor boundaries in this way. And that's how this dynamic gets going, is in those poor boundaries. And being able to take full responsibility for ourselves and be able to realize that also these dynamics are reflections for us and have medicine for us to be able to heal and work through. Very recently, I had made the choice to go fully having no contact with someone that I was close to for many years. I had tried to work things out with them multiple times, and the same patterns continue to come up. And I could literally go in and see these toxic cords of energy. And I needed to basically completely let this go from my life, completely let go of this old version of myself. And that was a choice that I made for myself, to also go in and start clearing these cords. That's another powerful thing to do, is like, as you're starting to make these boundaries, and as you're starting to prioritize your self-care, and you're starting to prioritize your connection to source, being able to make very clear boundaries. And also recognizing that when you choose to let go of someone from your life, you're making a choice for you, and it's not about them. And it's also getting to a place where it's like you're so centered within your own knowing that by not continuing to argue, by not continuing to fight, by not continuing another useless conversation where you repeat something for the however manyth time that never changed anything in the past, that you are making a conscious, empowered choice of self-sovereignty to no longer engage. And this can be very difficult too, because of these attachments that we have to these relationships, especially if it's, a loved one, or an ex whoever, or a family of origin, or people from, that have been your family growing, or, people that you've been close to, or even leaving a job, or even a relationship with a certain living situation. It's like, as we give ourselves the permission to let go of certain patterns, it's going to bring a lot up, and we're going to be able to see as well how we were feeding into those toxic dynamics. But as we connect to that source, and as we're able to come into this unity consciousness and be able to heal and love and embrace our shadow, we're able to see the medicine that we need from that, to the point where we're like cleaning the mirror, and therefore we no longer get that reflection. We no longer are a vibrational match to those kinds of relationships. And that's why completing the past has been a very powerful process I found for me. It's like, it's been important for me because I've also looked at the mindset, and looked at focus on the positive, and looked at law of attraction, look at manifestation. And it's this idea of just focus into the positive. But at the same time, if you're feeling this unresolved energy of the past, it's not necessarily just reframing it or just turning your attention elsewhere. There's a power in being able to look at and feel through the layers of what it is that you needed to learn through that situation, and also how that shaped you into now who you're becoming, and being able to allow yourself the time to process those emotions and the space to be able to go through that, and to not judge yourself for like not being spiritual enough, or like, oh, I just got to do it. No, we're like all of it. We're the whole spectrum of it. And all of us have experienced some degree of this, and it also relates to, with toxic relationships, it relates to ancestral trauma. And being able to go in and clear these attachments as well, and be able to take responsibility for our energy and come into our sovereignty, is also being able to, in a way, heal our lineages or our timelines, but also recognizing that you can carry false loyalty to past relationships or to family, that makes you think that if you succeed, you have this hidden shame that you will be leaving people behind, or that if you let go of this past opportunity or this person, you'll be doing the very thing that you would never want to do to someone, which is to make someone feel abandoned or unloved, because you are empathic, because you have compassion at your heart. But here's the thing to understand, is that in toxic dynamics, especially with people who have unintegrated spiritual ego, especially delusions of grandeur, especially those who are the shadow aspect of being insulted by the slightest thing that would possibly question one's imagined position of superiority, especially the toxic shadow aspect of superiority complex. Now, if you whitewash it, if you avoid it, it will eventually come to a head. You will eventually realize that this is an unintegrated aspect. Now, it becomes even more complex when you're dealing with spirituality, and you're dealing with creating with others, or you're dealing with groups and people, because these dynamics are very subtle. It's not so simple as just like being an empath or somebody being a narcissist, right? We're talking about aspects of the shadow. And there's also bits in that for us to realize that, the spiritual ego thinks that it is more spiritual. It thinks that it is more enlightened and more like better than other people. But it's a false persona. It's not actually enlightenment. Because from a certain perspective, enlightenment isn't a personality trait, Enlightenment is like an alignment with divine source. So, and it's like you're either in it or you're not in it. It's not an attainment. It's not something that you get. So being very wary, and I've had this happen in a teacher in the past. I realized eventually that they had a spiritual ego where they thought that they were getting these like attainments. And it was about these attainments that they had, and that's why they were so superior to others. Now, if you're not wary of your own discernment, and you play into the people pleasing of letting that go on, now that's also what are these other toxic dynamics that you're going to feed into? You're going to feed into toxic gossip. Definitely done that in the past. And you think you're doing it, by the way, to be able to discern and see where people are really at, but it's a total load, because what you're doing is every time you turn around and you talk all this negative trash about someone, even if it's in a closed container, or even if it's in a group container, now really looking at the pattern within ourselves, or the pattern within another person that we're in a toxic dynamic with, of like, is that a pattern? Because if that's a pattern that in multiple situations that this person turns and makes the person who didn't meet a need, or that didn't do something the way that they liked it or wanted it to happen, a type of enemy, or a type of they're not as advanced, or they're not as spiritual, or whatever the justification of it is, or or even they're just a bad person, right? If it's not just like a spiritual ego, if it's just a, whatever, a normal thing. If there's a pattern of somebody turning around and making that person like an enemy in their mind and needing to trash talk that person, that's a pattern. That's not just somebody venting, right? If this is a repeated thing and they need your energy, your life force in order to feel justified in their perspective, that's a codependent dynamic. Now, both forces are needed, the passive force and the aggressive force. Now, these even exist in nature. Sometimes a lion's taking a nap, other times it's eating a gazelle. Now, both of these forces exist within us, feminine and masculine energy. And as we do the integration work, these forces become balanced within ourselves, and we start living into wholeness. And I'm not saying like we get to this perfected state. I'm saying that like living into wholeness is like, it's like a living embodiment. Like you're living it. You're not perfect, but you're in touch with that perfection of spirit, and it's perfectly imperfect. Like you're allowing yourself now to live life authentically. So if you're in relationships with people who can't truly be vulnerable, or if you yourself were having trouble feeling fully safe in those dynamics, you can end up attracting those dynamics of people that will give you the validation and approval that you're not giving to yourself, that also relates to that childhood dynamic. Now, the way of taking your power back and of healing from these patterns of codependency, from being the victim empath to being the empowered empath, the superpowered empath, is taking full responsibility for yourself and, in a way, owning yourself, owning your energy, owning and loving and embracing every part of yourself, and having solid boundaries. And when I say solid boundaries, I mean being able to say no to someone without explaining yourself, and being able to say yes to something when you truly want it. I'm talking about self-advocacy. And this is something I struggled with for years, because when I was a kid and growing up, I felt like it wasn't okay for me to want the things that I wanted. I felt like I was too much. And so I shrunk myself down. Or so I tuned into other people's energies to make sure that they were okay, instead of living in my own body. So that's what it is. It's living in your own body, living in your own frame of reality, and being able to discern your energy from someone else's energy, and being able to go through and feel these things, and being able to see the truth in them, and see someone for who they really are, and recognize that if you've been through these cycles with someone and you end up having the same kind of destructive patterns, or you end up feeling less confident, or you end up feeling like there's this icky energy, this sticky energy in your auric field, or like these cords of attachment, well, it's time to reclaim your energy, and it's time to clear those, and it's time to let those people go. And it may not be something that happens instantly, but your soul tribe does exist. And as you do this work of healing, it's a mirror, right? Your reality is a mirror. So really awesome relationships with people that truly love and care about you do exist. And so as we're able to start to clear and heal and establish those clear energetic boundaries, as well as that communication, and be able to self-advocate for ourselves, we start to become living into our wholeness as a sovereign being connected to the source consciousness. And within that is a complete transformation that will happen in your life, or has happened in your life. And it's a really powerful process of being able to go within as well, and being able to learn these lessons, and being able to see how we fed into certain dynamics, and how places where we didn't fully speak in our truth, or that we didn't fully feel complete within ourselves. So maybe we attracted somebody who was a leader or very charismatic in our life, or somebody who was a parental figure in our life, or somebody who was a type of spiritual teacher, or somebody or people that could maybe you're trying to get that sense of validation and completion, but then inevitably, because it's a shared magnet, they also have aspects within themselves that are unintegrated, that are also codependent, and they will either at one moment be this magnanimous savior, at one moment they'll be this infinite victim, but ultimately they need you. So when you realize that even if this person might trick you into thinking that they have all the power in this situation, right? Maybe you gave your power away to them, you looked up to someone else, or maybe these relationships made you feel small, or maybe you feel like you weren't fully owning your authority. As you reclaim your authority, you will see that it is all an illusion. Nobody has that kind of power over you. As you go through shifting these timelines and stepping into this reality version of yourself, it was all an illusion. You had the power all the time. Your key was just hidden in the darkness of your subconscious. But as you turn within, you can pick that key up and you can unlock the door, and you can walk through to freedom, and you can walk through to sovereignty, and you can walk through to love, and you can choose to raise your frequency, and you can choose to raise your standard of living to such a place where you will only allow people that will meet you in a space of love. And anytime those patterns come up, that you will not indulge them, and instead you will find the source within yourself. And as you do that, and as you give yourself permission to live your best life, understand that that is your service to the collective, to the planet, to the whole. And anybody trying to teach you or tell you otherwise could honestly be leading you down a false path, could honestly be leading you towards giving your power away. Now, if they were so superior and so wise, why wouldn't they know that they were doing that? Because they haven't actually done the deep work on themselves. We got to look through the many lenses and many layers of the discernment to be able to realize that we all have this tool and ability to be able to step into our power, and to be able to not buy into those illusions, and be able to truly love ourselves, and be able to truly do the deep work of healing and also reparenting ourselves. Because as you connect into the earth, and as you connect to the sky, as you connect to the divine, as you integrate your masculine and feminine energy, that you are reparenting yourself. You are becoming both the divine parentage and the divine child. Like, your inner child feels safe and held by you now to actually express yourself. But until you go in and heal these energy leaks and make those boundaries and truly self-advocate, that part of you is not going to feel safe to come out. And you're going to constantly feel drained and wondering if that person's going to show up somewhere. Or are they going to message you? And I know that there's many different situations where it's like you might not be able to immediately walk away, or you might not be ready to. But as you even start to go create space for yourself, give yourself time, find places, find things that support that, to be able to go in and work through these energy dynamics, the situation is going to resolve itself. An opportunity, a possibility of how to move out of that situation is going to appear. But also realizing that it's about this, we hold the keys to our own freedom. And anybody who's trying to teach you that you need to follow them to the ends of the earth and beyond for your salvation is a liar and a charlatan. Because nobody else has that for you. Nobody else is coming to save us. We've got to save ourselves. Because even by buying into that, you're pedestaling somebody and you're giving your power away. And this happens all the way from toxic relationships, but look at this trait in the world. Look at this trait on the world stage. It's the same thing. We've got to own our own authority. We've got to own our own power. We've got to write our own story. We've got to be the leaders of our own life, the leaders of this new earth, and the fresh possibilities that exist in that fertile soil of creation in our lives. And by owning that, then we can truly be empowered, empathic, mission-centered, purpose-living compassionately passionate people who don't put up with bullshit. Because that is not compassion. That's a lack of boundaries. Sometimes compassion is literally saying no and walking away because you are included in the equation. And even being able to come to this point of giving thanks to all of the reflections and being able to feel, right? You can't rush the healing, but being able to like feel through that. And as we come to this place, like that's where I found, I'm like, I'm coming to a place of peace. I'm coming to a place of forgiveness. And I'm okay with being able to say, I'm not engaging in those dynamics and I'm walking away. I am walking into my future and I'm walking into relationships that can meet me on this frequency where I can receive what I can give, which is those truly loving, deep connections, those magical connections and experiences. And, also like having support and a community of people. And I know that at different phases of the journey, it can seem impossible. Like, where is that? It depends on where you are in your spectrum. Depends on which reality you're in on the spectrum. But knowing that it does exist, and also, as we're able to connect to the earth and start to feel that support, and also as we're able to start to discern who it is that we truly want in our circle of close connections and who we want to be collaborating with and who we want to be, what kind of energy we want to be living in, and we commit and devote to that, that the universe is going to see that we've made a decision and is going to send us the tools for our healing, and it's going to send us the synchronicities for those opportunities. It's going to open the doors to those people, and it's going to move people and things and situations that no longer serve you out of your life. You just got to trust the process and claim the key. All right. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Peace and many blessings.